Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, across planet Earth, especially to all you sane people out there, because that's who this program is for. Welcome to yet another episode of AVFM News and Activism. I am Paul Elam with co-host James Huff. And James, how the hell are you?
Oh, I feel great today. How are you today?
If I was any better, I couldn't stand myself. Besides that, a lot of other people can't stand me either, but I think I'll choose not to lose sleep over that tonight.
Yeah. In fact, we have got an interesting show tonight, folks. We've got a couple big news stories here, and one really lighthearted one. Well, for us anyway. And I say we pop right into it, Paul. What do you think?
Hey, man, it sounds good to me. That's what we're here for. We don't have a guest tonight to interview, so we're just going to cover news stories and get a little extra dose of commentary in. So, James, why don't you let her rip?
Top U.S. generals, women should have to register for the draft. And this is coming out of Reuters. The top U.S. Marine Corps and Army general said on Tuesday that women should be required to register for the military draft along with men as the armed forces move toward integrating them fully into combat positions. Quote, I think that all eligible and qualified men and women should register for the draft. General Robert Neller, the commandant of the Marine Corps, told a Senate Armed Services Committee hearing on women in combat. General Mark Miley, the Army Chief of Staff, also backed registration for women, although two other witnesses, Navy Secretary Ray Mabus and Acting Army Secretary Patrick Murphy, said only that there should be a discussion of legislation requiring women to register for the selective service. It was the first time Neller and Miley had publicly backed requiring women to register for the draft. They spoke in response to a question from Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill, who said she also believes women should register. The White House said the comments did not reflect a policy change. I don't know how seriously that is being considered. Press Secretary Josh Earnest said, the U.S. military has been an all-volunteer force since the 70s, but young men must register in case the draft is reactivated. They say the process could take years. The military leaders said it would take years for women to be fully integrated into combat units, although they generally voice strong support for the plan to skeptical committee members. Miley estimated full integration would take no less than 1 to 3 years of deliberate effort. President Barack Obama's Defense Secretary Ash Carter announced in December that the military would let women serve in combat roles. The historic announcement prompted opposition from many Republican members of Congress, some of whom said it would force women to register for the draft. Republican Senator John McCain, the committee's chairman, said that there had been too little planning. He also pointed to studies that found that women suffer more injuries and did not perform as well. Quote, rather than honestly confront these realities, some have sought to minimize them, McCain said. Many Republicans feared the change would lead to quotas mandating specific numbers of women, which they argue could weaken some units, such as Marines in positions that might require hand-to-hand combat. The military leaders repeatedly rejected that suggestion. Quote, it would endanger not only the safety of Marines, but also the safety of our nation, Mabus said. Some Republicans also reject some arguments. Quote, our country is about treating people as individuals and having a meritocratic approach. The debate is over. Women are in combat. Women have been in combat. Representative Martha McSally, a former combat pilot, told Reuters at the House of Representatives after the hearing. However, she acknowledged that requiring women to register for the draft could change the discussion, whether it meant eliminating the selective service altogether or including women. I'm not sure how that will go, McSally said. Wow, okay. Complex subject, folks. More complex than what most people want to give it credit for, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm afraid that includes some of our MRA brethren.
Absolutely, yeah.
It is not a simple subject. There is all kinds of implications. I mean, one of the things that I think we have to acknowledge, James, is the history on this is that there have been several lawsuits in the past trying to include women in selective service. And it has been struck down every time for years because of what they considered a restriction, that there was a restriction against women in combat roles.
Mm-hmm.
So the courts ruled against those lawsuits based on the idea that since women are prohibited from combat roles, that there is no justification for making them subject to selective service.
Right.
Well, last year, or was it the year before, Leon Panetta and the administration opened up combat roles to women, allegedly. And again, even that is a lot more complicated than just saying they opened up combat roles to women, because women aren't in combat roles the same way men are. But now there's a lawsuit filed by National Coalition for Men's Mark Angelucci, a men's rights activist and attorney out of California, that is rather timely in that combat roles have been opened up to women. And so the rationale that the court has always had for excluding women from selective service is now gone. So it's going to be interesting to see that. But one of the things that we have to address, I mean, and it even changes from combat theater to combat theater. It is one thing to have boots on the ground in the form of women with rifles in combat areas in a place like Iraq, or at least in the lowlands of Afghanistan. But James, what about jungle combat, such as we had in Vietnam?
Right.
Do we really think that women are going to?
It's a whole nother story. I'll tell you that right now. Waging war is environmentally based. You can't get away from that. You're not on a flat field anymore with a bunch of people on either side clashing together. There is a lot that goes into it. Now, I'm going to lay this on the line for a lot of people who aren't aware of what happens in places like Iraq and the lowlands of Afghanistan. You've got men and women, particularly in support units, who are running back and forth in convoys, taking supplies from one forward operating base to another, and they will regularly come under fire or have to deal with a improvised explosive device. And so in this way, we are finding women in combat. They might not be in combat roles. They could be truck drivers. They could be clerks. I'm not kidding.
Yep.
They could be clerks. But because they're making these runs back and forth through dangerous areas that the enemy are in, they can come under fire. They do come under fire, and they have fired back. And so the argument over whether or not there are women in combat is a moot point. How well do they respond? Well enough. I've never really seen an issue with a support unit not being able to return fire effectively and not being able to make their call out for support from the combat units like the scouts or air support or anything like that. So this is happening, folks. And opening up these combat positions specifically to get women in there to carry those guns and fire on the enemy rather than simply being clerks or truck drivers or whatever, is going to be a big step. We're going to see whether or not this is going to pan out. And for selective service, we have to wonder what their standards are going to be. And it comes down to two factors, in my opinion. You've got physical standards and you've got psychological effects. And the physical standards, I think, is probably the easiest part to take care of. You simply make it across the board what you expect the standard to be for a soldier, regardless of sex, within a provided military occupational specialty, and make them adhere to that standard.
Let me interrupt on that, though. But this is not, we're already in a place that this is not what the military does.
Correct. We're not doing that right now. Right now, we have two distinct standards when it comes to physical fitness in the military. And doesn't matter where these women are, those standards are still the same. The only way that I would accept accept women into military combat position is if the standard was the standard regardless of sex. But then that would kick out quite a few.
Yeah, like 98% of them.
Yeah, quite a few potential women, because the standards are extremely high even for men. I would have barely hacked it in a combat unit because of the high scores you have to get on your physical testing.
I take it you were not 11 Bravo.
No, I wasn't. No, I was in a support unit. I was, my first stint in the military, I was a imagery analyst. My second stint in the military, I was a Bradley mechanic. So there you go.
And that's the point, I think. I mean, for those of you that haven't served in the U.S. Army or may not be familiar, 11 Bravo is a combat infantry MOS or job, for lack of another word. And the physical testing standards to even be a combat infantryman are really tough. I mean, your average young man is going to be able to do it with the training, but women, as a rule, are not going to be able to fill those roles. So this, to me, this whole thing about opening up combat roles to women is bullshit to begin with. They are going to, now I've heard conflicting stories, and I have stories of my own from the military. I mean, I was in the 70s when we would go out on field maneuvers, and all the guys would pitch in and set up tents and basically set up operations completely, while the women sat in the shade and complained about the heat making their makeup run. And I'm not kidding.
No, I gotcha. There was a lot less of that when I was in the second time through. First time through, it was still like that. Second time through, there was a lot less of that. But there would still be that friction. There would still be those times you look over and you see the women are piss farting around, making it look like they're working.
And what that translated to, as you well know, James, was that every swinging dick that wasn't a swinging dick in the field ended up being a burden to the people that had to carry the weight. That you've only got so many people in a company, so many people in a platoon and in a squad. And when you have to have somebody on the team that's weak and you're forced to do that, then the others on that team have to carry the weight for that individual. And I know that there are some women who can carry their weight, and I don't have any problem with them being in combat roles, but there are, because the physical standards, the PT standards are different for females than they are for males. It means that they're skating in on a lower standard, which means they essentially cannot do the job.
Correct.
And when you can't do the job, then people end up under more risk of getting killed.
And this also has a major effect on a psychological level. It's a morale breaker. It really is. It is a morale breaker when you've got a guy who isn't pulling his weight. and you're wondering whether or not you should give that motherfucker a nice blanket party to wake his ass up.
You want to explain what a blanket party is for those who don't know?
Like, essentially, you catch the guy while he's asleep, and usually you've got some bars of soap and some socks. You tie him up inside of his own sleeping bag and then beat the crap out of him with the bars of soap.
And I don't know if they're still doing that in the service, but it was commonplace when I was in with people that could not or would not carry their weight. They wouldn't be tolerated.
No, they wouldn't be tolerated. And today you don't see that in the same brutal fashion, but it's still there with a lot of social ostracization. And social ostracization is not something you can friggin' afford when you're out in the battlefield and you've got this other guy not pulling his weight. I mean, what's he going to do? Sit over in the corner while you're firing at the enemy? And, you know, this applies to men and women and the psychological effect of not people or of not having people pull their weight in the battlefield. This is a this is a complex subject, folks, and keep in mind the way that men are being raised as well. I think we've got all these blue pill guys running into the military. They're being taught this inflated sense of chivalry in some cases. And what happens when they're paired up with a woman next to them? Yeah, I think we can all.
Well, unless they've had a few bottles of red pills, it can make for a lot of problems.
It can make for a lot of problems. Look at the rates of pregnancy on some of these Navy ships that go out.
Oh, especially when they're about to be deployed.
Yep. So look, this is not something that's going to be solved easily. I am all for going ahead and allowing women to go ahead and go in, but only on the provision that the physical standards are standardized to the battlefield commander's requirements. I think that the battlefield commander has to be the one to set the requirements because he's the guy who knows what is needed in order to get the job done. So leave it up to these leaders to set the physical standards like they do in a lot of these combat units already. Look, you've got 300 points you could make on a PT test, and Joe Blow coming off the street only needs to make 60 points in each event. This is for the Army, okay? This is for the Army. 60 points on each event for a total score of 180 in order to pass the PT test. That's 180 out of 300, and that's for a guy. And there's a totally different standard with how fast he has to run the 2 miles, how many push-ups, and how many sit-ups he has to do as compared to what the women have to do. They don't have to do it as fast or as many to make the same amount of points.
James, are the women still doing push-ups from the knee?
They can.
Okay, so they have the option of resting on their knees to do push-ups.
Correct. Then you've got your more combat-related fields. And when you go in, you can argue till you're blue in the face, but the reg says I only need to make a 180 in order to pass, and I guarantee you that if you were to tell your commander that, he would friggin' laugh in your face and tell you to get into remedial PT until you were scoring a 255 to 285 or better.
Yep.
And folks, that's 1 to 2 more hours out of your day that your ass is going to be mandatorily at the gym busting it. And if you don't show improvement, they will find any reason they can to get you the hell out of there. They will find any reason they can to do it.
Which brings up another problem, James, is that I know that I read Fred Reed did a piece a few years back where he had gotten a hold of a whole group of Pentagon studies on physical fitness in the military with special focus on the differences between men and women. And what the Pentagon found, the Pentagon's known about this. I mean, Panetta knew about this. They all know about it, which is what has made the whole thing so political. But women, for instance, are like 7 times more likely to get stress fractures, particularly in their ankles and shins.
And when you're carrying 50 to 60 pounds of weight on your back, your ankles and shins take a friggin' beating. I mean, there were days I would come back after these marches that we did, and I would have friggin' quarter-sized blisters on my feet, and my legs would just ache from the tips of my toes all the way up to my hips.
Yep. And so what do you do when you're out in the field, or if you're on patrol and one of your team gets a stress fracture? Now, over a non-combat injury that is preventable by not having women in those scenarios, you have a wounded team member that will probably get a fucking Purple Heart. And is going to be weighing the team down and putting all the lives at risk. That's how complicated this stuff is. This is how messy it gets when you talk about women in the military. And now I've heard some guys say, well, fine, all female combat units. Right. They will get wiped out. And I don't think that's a solution either.
No, it's not a realistic solution. Because it's not a realistic solution, because first off, our climate will simply not allow that to happen. That harkens back to Jim Crow days where everyone was screaming about separate but equal. And really it came down to literally wasn't very equal. And you're going to see the same type of political and social press screaming the same types of phrasing that were being used in the era of civil rights if the military tries to do something like that. So no, that's not a realistic solution. That will not happen, and that is a friggin' pipe dream.
But it won't stop them from politicizing this. I can tell you, as somebody that was in during the Vietnam era, that there was huge racial tension in the Army at the time. I mean, literally, like the tension that leaves some people being found in dumpsters. And a lot of the belief system at the time was that black men were getting put on point more often, that they were sent on the more dangerous missions, and that they were dying in disproportionate numbers. It turns out that that was not true. It turns out that African Americans died in combat in Vietnam at a rate almost exactly proportionate to their presence.
Right.
And so there was no legitimacy whatsoever, but there was racial tensions based on that were long running. Even after we came out of Vietnam, for a good long while after that, there were serious racial tensions on military bases in the United States. That bred a lot of conflict between black and white soldiers over an absolute myth.
Yes.
And if people think they won't do that with women, they're nuts. We're going to have this similar kind of problems. It may not play out in exactly the same way.
No, it won't. It won't, because what's going to end up, because it'll play out where you're going to see the guys starting to go, what the hell? Why is she never on point?
Well, and it's going to be a goddamn valid question.
Right.
In that case, they will be asking, why am I the first to get shot more often for this woman that's making the same money as me, and half the time she's in the rear with the gear? And we're going to see a lot of those scenarios out of this. So one of the things I'm wondering out, James, is that I know that the liberals are going to get refined. They were anti-war until Obama got elected, and then they forgot they were anti-war because their guy was escalating conflict instead of reducing it, as he promised. But they're going to find their peacenik selves again as soon as a few more women start coming home in body bags. But what I'm curious about is how is the political right going to handle this? It must be an absolute nightmare for them, the idea of women getting killed with any sort of regularity in combat. Right now, it's still over 97% of combat fatalities are male.
Right.
Well, what if that drops to 88%? What's the right going to do then? I think the gynocentrists are going to be losing.
What can they do? What can they do? But I'll tell you what they can do. They can remove the draft altogether. They can remove the idea of selective service. And even that, folks, is a major, major contentious issue. I have seen so many people take the nationalist angle and go, we need the draft just in case.
Well, I got news for those idiots. We're going to have a draft if the country's powers to be determines that we need one, even if they eliminated selective service today. And
they will re-implement it the moment they need it.
At the drop of a hat. So there is no real removing of the draft. There is no real terminating it. We can terminate it in situations where we don't need it, which is like we are now.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I agree. But look, the reason why the draft system is set up as it is right now is to call people fast. Okay. And, they kept it all through the Cold War because, look, you had all these nukes pointed at each other. And if those types of things start going off, you need bodies, and you need bodies quick.
Well, if those things went off, you'd have bodies really quick.
You'd have bodies quick, right?
Lots and lots of them.
But you get what I'm saying. I mean, with recovery efforts, with a possible invasion force, things of that nature that can come in behind and sweep up the masses. That is why the system was put in place in the first place. I'm not defending it. Don't get me wrong. I'm just telling you what the reasoning is. This you go in, you sign your card. That card is put in an office nowadays. It's put in a computer. And then you get a letter in the mail, or you get a phone call, or you get an email, or you get any number of other ways that these people can contact you and tell you to report to the nearest duty station. It would be very difficult, I think, to get rid of the draft and then reinstitute a draft. They would literally have to get out some press gangs and start scooping men up off the street.
Yep, and they would.
Just like they used to do back in the real old days when you had conscription. It wasn't like these folks running around the countryside tilling their farms were getting letters in the mail. No, what would happen is you would have a whole bunch of armed soldiers roll up on the farm and say, "You are with us."
Yeah, as of immediately.
Right. Grab whatever you can, friggin' march behind us. We are off to war. That was conscription back then, folks, and
they weren't doing it to women, by the way.
No, of course not. So
more that patriarchal power.
Oh, absolutely. So there you go, folks. This is how it used to run. Today it's run in the same spirit through technological means. And I don't think, in all honesty, that they are actually going to get rid of the draft. I think, Paul, we are going to have a huge mess on our hands over the next 5 to 10 years. as far as this discussion is concerned and all the implications, and I think we will be coming back to this. But while we are on the subject, I've got something else to share.
Lay it on us.
Coming out of the Daily Caller, this is the headline: Hillary Clinton, alleged feminist, declines to back generals who say women should register for the draft.
Oh.
No,
Well, I mean, after all, women are already the primary victims of war.
that's right.
I mean, what do you want them to do? Carry their weight?
Wait a minute. Wait, if they're the primary victims, well, you see, I guess she wants them to be in the victim status after all.
Yes, she wants them to be and remain the primary victims of war by
Not dying
being in war. I'm sorry, but that bitch confuses me.
Hillary Clinton, who claims to support gender equality, declined on Wednesday to say that women should be automatically registered for the draft through selective service when they turn 18, as men are required to do. The Democratic presidential frontrunner was asked about her position on the issue during a town hall event hosted by CNN. Moderator Anderson Cooper asked Clinton what she thought of comments made during a Senate Armed Services Committee hearing on Tuesday, in which Marine Corps Commander General Robert B. Neller said that all eligible qualified men and women should register for the draft. Citing new rules allowing women to apply for combat jobs, Neller said that now that those restrictions have been removed, then you're a citizen of the United States. Doesn't mean you're going to serve, but you go to register, Neller said. Do you think women should also have to register for selective service like men? Cooper asked Clinton. The former Secretary of State avoided weighing in and offered a jumbled response. I love this.
We do have an election coming.
Quote, I have to think about whether it's necessary to go as far as our military officers are recommending, Clinton responded. From my perspective, the all-volunteer military has worked, and we should not do anything that undermines it because it has provided a solid core of people who are willing to serve our country.
She said in total refusal to answer the question.
Nearly all men, even non-citizens and refugees, must register for selective service within 30 days of turning 18. The system has existed in its current form since 1980 and is in place to ensure that enough manpower is in place in case of a large-scale war. I have a hard time imagining the kind of national emergency that would require the use of selective service system, so I just have to be better informed about why they're making this recommendation, Clinton said.
Well,
we'll get back to that. The idea of having everybody register concerns me a little bit, unless we have a better idea of what's going to come out. Clinton used part of her response to pivot towards an automatic registration system she does support. Where I want people to register, I want every person to register at the age of 18 to be able to vote automatically, Clinton said to applause. I think if we had a system like that, I would be very pleased about it. Okay, so she says, I have a hard time imagining the kind of national emergency that would require the use of selective service. And yet she doesn't come right out and say...
And she wants to be commander-in-chief, and she has a hard time imagining...
it, right.
Okay. That instills confidence. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yep. You hit the
Of
nail.
course, if you don't even manage to observe security protocols, and you have top secret emails on a private server, I guess I shouldn't be too surprised that she might come up short in a few other ways.
An idea of having everybody register concerns me a little. But what gets me is she wants to take the halfway point. She's taken the slippery route. She doesn't just come out and say, I think we need to end selective service altogether. She doesn't come out and say that. No, instead, she essentially says, and I'm paraphrasing really heavily, fuck the men, and I really don't want to answer whether or not women should be part of it.
Especially not while I'm running for office, depending heavily on the female vote. I find it very interesting. I'm shocked that we have an example of equality for me, but not for thee, coming out of yet another feminist. No, I'm actually not.
I was about to say, it sounded so serious for a second. It threw me off guard.
Yeah, believe me, I wasn't serious at all. But yeah, this is just more of the same bilge water that we come to expect from feminists, that when it gets down to it and, have all the feminism is for men too, if you unleash you from the burden of your gender role, well, unless it really gets nasty, and then I want you to be the man.
Oh, God.
One of the things that strikes me about this that I do see as a positive, depending on how this goes, is that if the draft or selective service is instituted for women, and if they become subject to the same conditions that men are during a national emergency, and I know I'm talking fantasy land here, because even if we forced women to register for selective service, the idea that it would put them in harm's way just because they had to register for selective service is ludicrous. But just in the fantasy land here, if women did have to do this, it would be the first time in American history where women earned the right to vote. They have never earned the right to vote.
I am going
as it is.
To make a prediction. I will make a prediction. If you want to see population rates rise, folks, make women register for selective service. Because as soon as they start hearing that the draft is actually being instituted,
they'll be fucking like rabbits.
Oh my God.
You won't need that PUA course from Roosh.
It will be, you'll walk down the street, drop your dick out, and you're going to get laid. It is going to be just like that. I hate to say it. Look, we've got, once again, keep this in mind, volunteer women going into the services who are purposely getting pregnant to keep from deploying or to come back from deployment.
Yep.
They will fuck out in the field. Nasty ass fucking nasty out in the field. You can imagine not having a shower for 2 weeks, running around. It's like, ugh.
And they'll still bump uglies in that.
They'll still bump uglies.
Come back and get out of that horrific job so that the men have to carry the weight.
Yep.
And make no mistake about it, Hillary is being ambiguous for a reason. She knows full well that, people love to talk about, oh yeah, women can do it. Yeah, women, go girl, go. Treat them as equals. But they should have every opportunity. But the fact of the matter is that if Hillary Clinton advocated for true equality by saying that not only should women be subject to selective service, but they should also be subject to carrying out combat missions at the same rate as men, they should be pushed or booted out if they don't cut the mustard. If she said that, she'd lose her voting base.
Yes, she would.
Because women in this country do not fucking want to go to war. And they don't want that equality with men. As a rule, some yes. For the most part, absolutely not. It's a joke.
There you have it, folks. population rates would just expand. All those losses of, let's say we had another World War II, promise you, or World War I, I promise you that within 2 years of the draft being instituted, that loss would be made up with all the new babies.
Yep. We'd have another generation of baby boomers.
As the war is happening.
That would be a first.
It would not be the guys coming home to happy women and getting their freak on. No, it would be happening as the war is happening.
I can tell you right now that women would quit asking you how much money you make, and they'd start asking you what your sperm count is.
Yep. There you go. So maybe that needs to be pushed into the discourse. I'll tell you the truth, that's the first time I really had that thought come to mind, considering selective service. But there we go. If you look at how many of these volunteer women are trying to get out of military service by popping a kid out, imagine what it's going to be like for the average woman on the street. It is going to be an easy time of it. They will pay you.
Yes,
they will pay you.
And folks, under those circumstances, there'd be a whole lot of average women on the street.
There sure would. There would be a whole lot of average women offering to take you out for a date just so they could get that dick.
Get a free pass out of the combat zone and child support while they're at it. What's not to love?
Exactly.
Plus, they'll be shipping your ass off overseas.
Exactly. And guess what, folks? When you're shipped off overseas or you're in the military and some woman claims child support, yeah, you're fucked.
Yep. The military will not back you, my friend.
They will not. In fact,
they will just gladly slice your paycheck out because they're going to own your ass whether you have a paycheck or not.
Exactly. They'll make sure you get 3 hots and a cot, folks, and they'll put a roof over your head. But guess what? I've seen staff sergeants in the Army have to move back into the barracks because they can't afford to live off post after a divorce because of the child support and alimony.
And folks,
we're talking staff sergeants moving back into the fucking barracks.
That is more than halfway up the enlisted ranks. A staff sergeant is an E6, and they only go to E9. So that ought to tell you something. He can't afford a goddamn studio apartment because the military, on an allegation alone, will start just grabbing that money just so they don't have to mess with anything.
Yep. There we go, folks. There's your red pill for the day.
Another news story sort of related to this I was just reading. I don't think we have time to cover it in full, but the first female enlistee for combat engineering in Tennessee is now AWOL.
Oh, God.
Went through all that stuff to push her way into combat engineering, and apparently it's just a little bit too tough.
Hey, it is a tough job. Combat engineering is a tough job. When I was out at Fort Bragg as an imagery analyst, I got to hang out with a few combat engineers before and take a look at the things that they were doing and spend some off time with them.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'll tell you what, those guys, they had it rough. They had it just as rough as what your infantry guys had.
Try running with full gear, an M16, and a pick and a shovel. Because when they mean engineer, they mean dig, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Under fire.
Yep. Well, I think we've just about exhausted the possibilities of this particular conversation. Do you want to move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Yeah, we'll move on to something a little bit lighter here. Wow, it's really been that long already? It doesn't feel like it's been 45 minutes into the show. All right,
just
folks.
having too much fun.
Coming out of Breitbart, Lena Dunham won't return to Twitter without new code of conduct protecting women. Oh God.
Here comes the more equality, folks.
Here we go. Folks, this is our light piece. Okay? This is kind of a interlude. So sit back, relax, and just enjoy the snark that's going to come out of this one. Actress Lena Dunham criticized Twitter as a harmful place for women to spend their time, explaining why she decided to stop checking the platform.
Is it as harmful in Twitter as it is being her little sister?
Oh my! Oh,
God damn, man, where's that girl gonna go?
Ooh, yeah, no doubt. I haven't heard much about that since, but oh, yeah. I've been fairly public about the fact I no longer check my own Twitter, she said. I found that the hostility, particularly the hostility towards women and the expressions of violence, were too much. So what does she do? Does she? This so reminds me of a South Park episode where Butters was set to go through other people's social media and take out all the bad stuff and then hand the people hard copies of nothing but the good stuff in their social media. So that way they could have their safe space and feel good about themselves. And he was going nuts doing it. So she says she no longer checks her own Twitter. So I guess she has a Butters of her own. Dunham made her remarks this afternoon during a forum hosted by More Magazine with First Lady Michelle Obama and actress Julianne Moore. Dunham said she believed that Twitter was an important platform, but demanded changes and protections from the hatred she had exposed herself to. Dunham said, "Media internet platforms, social media platforms, have to be putting more barriers in place for what is ultimately the violent harassment of women. And just because it's not face-to-face doesn't mean it's not extremely dangerous emotionally. Doesn't mean it couldn't transfer to something really kind of terrifying in the real world." Oh my God. What a pussy.
Man, I tell you what, sometimes this show needs to come with a fucking barf bag.
Her words speak for themselves. I really don't think we have to dissect this. She said she stopped checking her Twitter account, leaving up to a social media manager. She has a Butters.
You know, I think if I wrote a book and in it I put passages describing how I finger fucked my little sister,
Oh God,
I might expect a little bit of hate on social media.
I would think so. Yeah.
And that's where. And what is it with goddamn feminists and pedophiles?
I've noticed more of that lately. I don't know what it is. I really
all
don't.
the way back to Simone de Beauvoir.
Yep. And Greer.
Yeah, Germaine Greer. What is it? And as it turned out, Hannibal Lecter.
Yep.
Was on a sex offenders registry for diddling a 13-year-old girl. But what is it about? And they hang out with the fucking first lady?
Well, we know where Michelle Obama stands.
Yes.
We do.
Apparently it's on the playground with Lena Dunham.
I'm not touching that one. She still has a Twitter account, but it's managed by a professional. Dunham reminded critics that even though she was a celebrity, she was frequently bullied on the internet. Hey, you may think that I have a fancy celebrity life or I'm hidden from this kind of thing, but I too am experiencing violent bullying in the internet, and it affects me also. For some reason, my brain just keeps flashing back to that Flash video game that was made with Anita Sarkeesian in it, where you could beat her up. I mean, is this the type of violent bullying that she's talking about? Dunham said that she had a Twitter account early, long before she was famous, and had to censor some of the things she was comfortable saying in her early career. I went back and erased some things.
She had to censor. She had to censor stuff, and then she wrote that fucking book. God damn, man. Okay, sorry. I just got again the constant life of contradiction just keeps fucking with my brain.
I know, it's great, isn't it?
No, I want to talk about finger fucking my little sister, but I'm going to be careful about what I say on Twitter. Okay.
I went back and erased some things, she said. She said that Twitter had to implement more protections before she would return to the platform. Now, understand, folks, not that she would return to the platform, but that she wouldn't have a social media manager doing it for her. Okay? Understand. She is still there. She just has someone filtering all that crap for her so she can feel safe.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I think that until new codes of conduct are in place, I'm not going to be able to return to looking at that platform freely, she said. She said that the problem with Twitter was that there were too many threats that were not being policed. Yes.
Yeah. Too much free speech.
No, man. Gotta police them. Gotta police that free speech. I think it's important to remember that threats are more than someone saying, I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to hurt you, she said. Insulting someone's appearance, insulting someone's religion or their race, all of that to me constitutes a threat. And I think we can make changes to how we control that dialogue on the internet without threatening our First Amendment rights. Fat fucking slag.
Wait a minute. If I call her a fat fucking slag, that's a threat?
I just did it, didn't I?
James Huff, you got it on the record here, folks. He has threatened Lena Dunham.
I just called her a fat fucking slag. And she is fat. She is fucking her sister, finger fucking. And she is a slag simply for the fact she wants to go ahead and have everybody police so that way she can feel comfortable because she's not a big girl yet and doesn't know how to handle her fifis.
Yes.
Fuck her on the horse she rode in on.
The intestinal fortitude of feminists always amazes me. I don't know how they can be so iron hard and steely-eyed. It must be all that independence and God damn it.
I demand you save me. Is that
Twitter?
That's a strong independent feminist. I demand you save me.
Yes, absolutely, and that's what the whole deal is. This is why feminism is gynocentrism.
Absolutely.
That's all it is, and it is cut from the same cloth as traditional gynocentrists. It
dialed up to
11.
White
Knights.
Dialed up to 11 and planted in the fertile soil of everybody's feelings and subjectivity instead of reason and evidence.
Or in the shorter version, feminism is patriarchy on crack. So all these feminists need is a goddamn chair to get up on and shriek. Or how did the one University of Missouri professor say it? Can I get some muscle over here?
Yep, and they will claim that they are brave for screaming mouse.
Yes.
That is really what they're doing, folks. If you can just imagine that old-timey vision that people would have of women running up on chairs with a broom, swishing the broom around, screaming mouse at the top of their lungs. That is exactly what feminists are doing.
That is what a feminist looks like.
And what they will do is after you move to get rid of the mouse, they will say, wasn't I brave for yelling it out? I was so brave. I was so brave because I made a discourse of it. I brought the discussion to the table, and I was just so brave for it.
Yes, it takes a woman of real courage to ask men to rescue her.
God, I think we did that well.
Lena, just suck it. Just suck it. Stay off of Twitter. Stay off of social media. Stay off the internet.
Stop writing books.
I'm not a big supporter.
You finger fuck somebody else.
Yes, I'm not a big supporter of abortion, Lena. But in your case, I support abortion retroactively.
Oh, God.
Jesus Christ, get off the planet.
Oh, man. There it is. Well, I really miss being able to take music breaks. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to press on, folks. We've got a couple stories here which we're going to hit at a particular angle. It's kind of a contentious issue, once again, even within our circles, Paul.
Yep. We often have contentious issues.
Oh, we do that, don't we?
Yes, but we'd allow ourselves to actually talk about them, even when we don't agree.
Holy shit. Wow, that's just amazing. We don't get on our chairs, do we?
No, well, we get on them, but we let other people get on theirs too. And, I mean, God, because, there's nothing that spells coward like attempts at censorship.
Absolutely. And folks, we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit this hard. Coming out of reason.com, all anti-feminist talk would be criminal hate speech if UK activists got their way. Paul, you got a slight echo on your end.
Okay. Let's try.
All right, let me test one. Sounds beautiful. All right, folks. American writer and pickup artist Rush V is causing a bit of a hysteria abroad in countries where citizens are even more likely than they are here to say that offensive speech is dangerous. The trouble started when Rush V announced the organization of 165 simultaneous meetups on February 6th for followers of his neo-masculinity movement, including gatherings across America and in countries such as Australia, Canada, Chile, England, Israel, and Scotland. Soon thereafter, activists in the UK and Canada began protesting the meetups, which they have labeled as pro-rape events. Granted, Rush doesn't have the most progressive views on romantic relations, and in stories about his sexual exploits, he often crosses into consent gray areas. But being a brute or a cad isn't illegal, and neither is writing rapey tall tales, nor is meeting with like-minded people to express unpopular views. Of course, this is exactly the problem for some who are calling on their governments to ban Rush from even entering the country, to ban his fans from meeting up, and to criminalize all anti-woman hate speech, an impossibly broad category that seems to include everything from common insults to political expressions at odds with feminism. As of February 3rd, more than 55,000 people had signed a petition calling for the Scottish government to prevent Rush from entering the country. Quote, promoting rape is hate speech and should be treated as such, end quote, the petition reads. Sandy Brindley of Rape Crisis Scotland has been organizing with other women's groups to protest Rush v. meetups in Scotland and pressure authorities to close the gap in criminal law by designating incitement of hatred against women as a hate crime. If what Rush is doing is promoting rape, then an incitement to hatred offense would enable us to deal with that, she told The National. But as a Scottish government spokesperson pointed out, making threats of sexual violence is already against the law in Scotland, as is harassment that would be likely to cause a reasonable person to suffer fear or alarm. Excuse me. Over in Canada, the mayors of city where Rush v. meetups are planned took to the internet to voice their displeasure. Your pro-rape, misogynist, homophobic garbage is not welcome in Ottawa, tweeted Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson. Toronto Mayor John Tory tweeted that Rush v. doesn't reflect the values of Toronto and his statements about women are demeaning and unacceptable. and Vancouver police have assured residents that they will be monitoring the Roosh V meetup there. All this for a dude with a blog and some self-published books? Or rather, the fans of some dude with a blog and self-published books? I mean, look, I've been aware of Roosh since he blogged under DC Bachelor back in the mid-aughts, and I find his views as gross as his capacity for self-promotion is impressive. But come on, there is absolutely no evidence to suggest that either Roosh or his fans intended any sort of public spectacle during these meetups, let alone any violence or incitements to violence against women. The entirety of activists' case for keeping them out or under the watchful eye of law enforcement is that they simply do not like what these men believe. And that's rather insane for anyone who claims to be sticking up for the rights of the vulnerable, marginalized, or oppressed. Because a government allowed to whimsically ban someone from entering the country or ban a group of people from associating based purely on dislike for the content of their beliefs is sure as shit not a government that's going to stop with pickup artists. Throughout history, limits on freedom of speech and association have come down hard on the left because it's the left that most frequently challenges the status quo. Lip service to social justice goals notwithstanding, there's no reason to think people in power are going to suddenly stop with this centuries-long tendency now. What's more, this sort of illiberal behavior from the left enables those with views like Roosh V's fans, as Charlie Peters writes at Spiked, quote, "When you censor extreme views, you force them underground where they escape criticism and become even more radical. If our politicians will not allow us to debate Roosh, then how are we ever to expect his brand of nonsense to be repudiated?" Folks, the author's name of this piece is Elizabeth Nolan Brown, and those are her opinions at the end there, and I think she hit the nail on the head with what she said. What do you think, Paul?
Well, I think she certainly did. I don't think that that is going to resonate with the fascists who want to silence Roosh. And, let me make a couple of things perfectly clear. There is much in Roosh, at least in his past, that I find lacking and a lot to be desired. And I do not agree. I've read some things by him that even a provocateur like me, I found pretty outrageous. And I don't mean the satire. I mean, I don't agree with people. His article about making rape legal on private property was satire. And anybody who says otherwise really doesn't understand satire very well. The whole point of Juvenalian satire is that it is supposed to come across as serious. However, when you couple that with some of the stuff that he wrote in Bang about having sex with women that he knew to be incapacitated and, in his words, were incapable of giving consent, then that's where the line is crossed. I don't abide by that shit. I don't abide by it when women do it, and I don't abide by it when men do it. But still, that doesn't change the fact that free speech, we have a First Amendment in the United States that is there to protect offensive speech. That's if your speech wasn't going to offend anybody, it doesn't need protection. That's the whole point of protecting speech, is so that points of views, belief systems, ideas can be expressed no matter how abhorrent they are to the general population. That's why we have a NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association, which I think is a really, really screwed up outfit of people that are promoting some really shitty stuff. But at the same time, do I want to silence them? No. I want them, one, where I can see them.
Yeah.
And two, I want the opportunity to challenge their ideas. But this lady really did knock it out of the park with this, is that when you drive people underground with political correctness and with fascism, then you end up making them more extreme.
You do, because you are looking at creating a vacuum chamber. And eventually speech one up speech, one up speech, and before long you've got this solid little core of blackness. Look, folks, we've seen this before. We've seen that solid little core of blackness. In the form of the Agent Orange files, you will see that these people tried, not very hard, but tried to keep their identities and their beliefs relatively silent. So they went in and they would write all these hateful things, and they would essentially show feminism's true face in the process, because all of it is hearkening back to radical second wave feminism. And this, when put on display, I hate to say it, these people just went poof, poof, every single one of them. Have heard not hide nor hair of hardly any of them since the Agent Orange files came out. And I can almost promise you that they're back to their scheming and plotting and talking about genetically modifying men like corn.
Well, they may be doing that, James, but they're not back to their career writing novels.
True, true. But once again, folks, we are looking at a potential for radicalization whenever individuals are not allowed to freely express themselves. And that can cause some major problems down the road.
Yeah, it already has. It occurs to me that, you know what the feminists remind me of these days more than anything else is Stepford Wives.
Oh, yeah.
They're zombies.
Yeah.
They're ideological zombies that can only tolerate, just like Lena Dunham can't tolerate dissent. And let's be honest, most of this stuff online on Twitter and what have you, other forms of social media that gets tagged as harassment and threats of violence is simply dissent. That's all it is.
Right.
I've had people saying you're full of shit.
I've had so many times I've logged on that Facebook, and I'm one of the admins on the A Voice for Men page. So many times I've logged on to Facebook, and I'll see Facebook has flagged one post or another, and I'm looking at this thing going, why the hell would they even flag this? This has nothing truly of offense here. It's just speaking truth to power, so to speak. But sure enough, some asshat comes along and flags this shit, calls it hateful, and Facebook takes it down.
Yes, the last one that they took down off our Facebook page was a meme of Clementine Ford pointing out her double standards. That's all it was. There was not a swear word in it. There was not, obviously, there wasn't a threat or any kind of harassment whatsoever. It was simply pointing out a point of view that differed from hers. And just like magic, we got to notice that it didn't meet community guidelines, which are to say feminist guidelines.
Exactly.
And so this is the kind of world that they're trying to build for us, and one where people are terrified, sort of like 1936 Berlin.
Right.
They want you in your nightclubs and bars looking over your shoulder before you say anything.
Mm-hmm. And folks, it's one thing for private companies like Facebook and Twitter to do what they do. Why? Because you can compete in the market, and if you don't like the platform, you can go to another platform. That's just the way it's played. But it's another thing entirely when you start getting the men with guns involved. And that is exactly what these people are asking for. They are asking for the men with guns to come in and police your speech. And if you don't speak the way that they want you to speak, those men with guns will come and take you away. And they will put you somewhere where you won't see the light of day until you either comply with their orders to speak the way they want you to speak, or you run out of money and you can no longer pay their extortion fees.
Or until you die.
Yep.
But this is what they're attempting to do. Lots of fun with that. I do think that the big social media platforms are in trouble because I see this as all very orchestrated. This stems off of Anita Sarkeesian, Rebecca Watson, and tons of other idiots out there, what we lovingly refer to as cry bullies, who damsel themselves and demand protection while asserting that they're equals and bullying people and harassing people themselves. And because we are programmed to protect women, it gets a pass.
Yep.
But God, I guess we just keep moving on.
Well, we will. We've got one more story. Folks, you're probably going to shit your pants when you hear about this one. Coming out of papermag.com, all-female boxing team in Toronto threatens to crash pro-rape rallies this Saturday. Now, keep in mind, folks, Rouge has canceled Saturday's events. All the February 6th events have been officially canceled, according to the latest statements. Now, I'm going to read this verbatim. This was written by Kerry O'Donnell. I don't know who this guy is, but I'm going to read this verbatim. Update. Rouge Vias canceled Saturday's planned fuckery because of, quote, safety concerns. Dariush Vlazda, Rouge, a blogger who penned the horrific legal rape argument last year, is planning worldwide gatherings Saturday for his pro-rape organization, Return of the Kings, in 43 different countries, called Rouge the pig-faced hell monster who said raping women in private should be legalized to give victims a learning experience, has planned these covert meetings where like-minded individuals, unless you're a woman, gay, or trans man, converge in city parks. The apparent code word to identify one another? Do you know where the pet store is? Rouge's goal is for the, quote, men to head the undisclosed locations and forge normal friendships with each other beyond the internet. Counter-protests, petitions, and outcries from various feminist groups, politicians, and pretty much anyone who has a conscience against this loathsome occasion are popping up every hour. Reacting to this opposition, Rouge took time from sucking his own terrible dick to address his followers with a planned offensive. Quote, up to now, the enemy has been able to exert their power by isolating us and attacking with shrieking mobs. We will be able to neutralize that tactic by amassing in high numbers come February 6th. I will exact furious retribution upon anyone who challenges you in public on that date, end quote. This, quote, retribution translates to Rouge taking videos of the feminists who crashed their event so fellow online goblins can tear them apart in the comments section. One particular all-female boxing club, the Toronto Newsgirls, is taking their own offensive toward Rouge and his boys. Speaking with the Metro News Toronto reporter Jessica Smith-Cross, The ladies are more than willing to show up Saturday with their boxing gloves on. They're also encouraging women all over the world to follow suit. A spokesman for the team was quoted in the Metro article as saying, quote, "Pictures will show up online of women wearing boxing gloves and blah, blah, blah. The photos of us will show women that being powerful is an option, and I think that's what needs to happen against this douchebag." Roosh, or yes, go off. That's okay, never mind. Yes, go off. Hopefully, this message will scare off these subhumans from joining forces, but if it ever did result in a violent clash, I am 100% confident there would be a lot of bloody-nosed men, including Roosh, weeping in fetal positions. All right, folks. There we have it. There we have it.
The hubris of
Plain-
assholes who count on the fact that men won't defend themselves when attacked by women.
Exactly.
Because we all know, like it or not, boxing club or not, that if men reacted to this kind of actual threat of assault, which there's no doubt that was a threat, that if they responded to that as though that their attackers were men, it would not be the guys who wound up bloody and on the ground, sucking their thumbs in a fetal position. This is nothing more than women who know the social standard does not permit men to even defend themselves against a female attacker. And they're exploiting that in order to harass people into silence. Like I said, I don't agree with Roosh on a lot of things, but this article, this piece of shit yellow journalism, describing this as a rape group, one, it's a lie. That's not what the group is. If I thought it was, I would say so. And there's no secret that I haven't hesitated to dish out some pretty harsh commentary on Roosh. But everything that they're saying in this article is bullshit. And now we got a bunch of clowns from a boxing club just looking for somebody to attack.
And no doubt looking to be attacked.
Yep.
Because as soon as one of those men moved to defend themselves, holy crap.
Yeah, it'd be over then. It would end up with Roosh and all of his friends in jail. And then you would have a prosecution working by hook or crook to get convictions on all of them.
And then of course, you'd never see another meetup like that again. They'd go once again underground to do their thing. And folks, freedom of expression and association would take a major hit.
You know,
these people who do things like this, they want you to fight back. I'm going to bring something up. I'm going to bring something up that John the Other spoke about once. I know we rarely get to talk about anything that he has said in the past, but he has said some good things in the past.
Oh yeah,
and I think very, very pertinent to any type of activism is the moment that you think you're in a situation you need to be recording. And there are times when fighting back is not the option.
right.
And yeah, you can say, "Oh my God, that's horrible. How could you say that? You should have the right to defend your..." Folks, you do have the right to defend yourself. That's on paper. But I can promise you that is not what the outcome is. At the end of the day, the moment you lift a finger to defend yourself, you become the bad guy. And you're probably more likely to alter the scope of the narrative that you're looking to get out there if you just simply curl up and take it.
Duck and roll, duck and roll.
So there you go. That is the nasty truth. The nasty truth about what it is these people could have faced.
And I think this is particularly good time for you to bring this up, James, because, I got to say, again, I defend Rush's right to free speech all the way. And this hatchet job they've been doing on him in the press is just that. It's a hatchet job. But the fact is that Rush breeds so much contempt and anger in his audience that the women that came to crash that party would probably succeed in catching some fists in the teeth, and then Rush's whole group would go down.
Yep.
And so I think he made a wise move to call this thing off. I don't think it's really safety concerns. I think Rush is not stupid. He must know on some level that if a band of idiot women with boxing gloves came in and started provoking and attacking, that he and all of his friends would end up in jail, which is exactly what they wanted to create with this.
Yep. They sure did. Hey, look at how look at how these people have tried to induce violence before. They get up in your face, they'll scream, they'll yell, they'll try anything they can to try to get you to do something.
Shut up, butt face.
And they never seem to realize that the smart ones are simply not going to fall for that. And they end up overstepping. And when they do, and they lay their hands on somebody, and you got it on film, there we go. Folks, this is why feminism is taking a turn right out the friggin' door. At least I hope it is. I've heard some conflicting reports lately. But this is why I'm seeing it go the way of the dodo. It's got to go that way because time and time again, we keep seeing these people get violent or use tactics and methods that are both illegal and threatening, physically threatening. Still there, Paul?
I am with you.
So there we go.
Yep. And that's the news that's fit to print.
I don't know where else to take this, man. This is just
I do want to point out that one of the things that's happened in this, and if you go now, Dean Esme has an article on the front page of A Voice for Men, the mega featured article about what the media is doing by painting Rush as an MRA, because in the mix of all this stuff, all the attacks on him, there has been a concerted effort, and I know that this is a coordinated effort. It has to be. There is at least, I would guess, about 30 sources we have posted there that all refer to Rush as an MRA. The whole point of this attack on Rush isn't really to attack Rush. It's to attack the men's human rights movement. And by painting us all as PUAs that think that, and I say this in scare quotes, that think rape on your own property should be legal. They know that Rush is not an MRA. They know that we are worlds apart in our philosophy about sexual politics, about rape, about everything, that we are totally different entities. But this is like, attacking Republicans by saying that they belong to the Ku Klux Klan. This is the same kind of tactic. And what they're doing is they're coordinating their headlines and their talking points in their supposed journalism covering this subject of Rush by painting him as an MRA. Go to that article and look at all the headlines that have men's rights activists in the title. This is not accidental. And I don't blame Roosh for this. Roosh has never said he's an MRA. Roosh has said just the opposite 100 times in public. This is the lamestream media, the bullshit con artist, yellow journalists that inhabit the mainstream media like an infection, deciding that they've got an opportunity here to turn more public sentiment against men's activists by painting us as PUAs who are pro-rape. And, to me, that's death throes, acting out and talking. This is not going to succeed. There is a few sane voices that have popped up and said, hey, wait a minute. No, they are not MRAs, the PUAs. But most of them are just going through with a bullshit lie, which is all the mainstream seems to be good for these days. And they're turning this into a weapon to use against people who are trying to deal with issues like family courts, like male suicide, like male genital mutilation, like the incidence of male depression, like the sentencing disparity between men and women, all of these things that are being brought to bear by men's advocates. They are trying to undermine all of it by painting us in the PUA camp and painting us as violent. It's not going to work. I mean, for the brain dead masses, yeah, anything works. You put bullshit in a can, slap Brad Pitt's image on the side of it, and most people of average intelligence, which is pretty fucking low, will buy it. But it doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily, matter of fact, in the long run, I think it'll do what it's always done, which is help the movement, because one thing that smart people don't like is being lied to. And when they read this stuff and then they eventually stumble onto places like A Voice for Men, they figure out, hey, wait a minute, they don't even like Roosh over there. What the hell is this? And they get it.
Yep. They do.
So bring your best, folks, which happens to be your worst. But
Speaking of meetups, something going on in Houston, right? Later this year.
There is. And for those of you who have stuck through this broadcast, this will be the first you hear of it. But I am happy to give a pre-announcement to let everybody know that the Red Pill movie will be coming to Houston. One of the crowdfunder perks was for large donors that they were to be given a license for screening. Now, it has to meet certain contract requirements, like we can't compete with the original director, Cassie J, during the time that, like if she's at the South by Southwest Film Festival in Texas, we would have to wait until after that's over. But we are tentatively scheduled for this fall at a rather remarkable venue, which I'll be announcing later, but we're going to have the screening of the Red Pill movie in a theater in Houston this fall. We are also going to be having a men's rights activist retreat, which I'm afraid it's going to take more than a few women with boxing gloves on to stop that. But that is coming this fall, and I'm really excited about it. One of the people that donated to the crowdfunder for the movie, a substantial amount of money, was given a license and has transferred that license to AVFM so that we can handle the screening. I'm very pleased and grateful about that, and it's going to be a great opportunity for MRAs to gather in Houston to see that movie during its early days of running, and for us to have a bit of a party around the circumstances at the same time. So it's something I'm really looking forward to. You will be hearing more details about this at avoiceformen.com and in future broadcasts with James, where we will be talking about it. We already have tentative agreements from some pretty popular people that I think you're going to be surprised to see who's going to be at this thing. And that's all I got for the moment. But
Like me. I'm pretty popular. I'll be there.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, James and I will be the guys talking all the way through the movie.
Oh, man. Well,
no, the only thing I'll be saying during the movie is more beer.
Oh, that would be nice. Is that the type of place we're going to get to see it?
I guess I can give away that much. Yeah, that's pretty much the type of place.
Okay, cool. Good. I like that. Well, I think we've just about hit everything we needed to hit, Paul.
Well, there's one thing. I know that you have some parting wisdom for everybody listening before we go.
I certainly do. Folks, remember, take the red pill.